Well,
Is that what you're talking about?
what I'm saying, today we have what we call the Temple Mount. It is not the Temple Mount. In
I think
fact,
she's talking about the tabernacle.
right, yeah, you're talking about the tabernacle, but the construct of it. What we're talking about is location. Mr. Russ? This is our first tape. You're getting more bodies. You may have Copy.
Make copies.
Oh, there she is. Hi, sis.
Hey.
Okay.
Starting to get a group of people, you know, Randy?
Yes.
Just you slide it that way.
You may
As far as you can get over by that whiteboard.
personal copy.
Oh, right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, that's way better, thank you.
Okay.
Gary would like one.
Gotta get- We're not gonna do a lot of
That's right.
juggling. We're not gonna do a lot of looking in scripture because that's not really necessary. What you need to do is put on your visualization cap.
Okay. Can Gary have one of those?
Yes. Oh, Gary, do you not have
Oh,
one?
I think this one might be Heath's too. I think I stole his.
That's okay.
No, there was an extra one.
Are we short?
Let's see, how many?
You need one because you'll like that.
I think I got an extra one right here.
Okay.
Yeah, you go make some copies.
If somebody else comes.
Okay.
I want you to take a look at this. This is a rendering. If you've ever heard of the Temple Mount, prophetically, the temple is going to be rebuilt. Jesus says he's going to sit in the temple, right?
Right.
And the Jews are ready to build it. But the problem is they've got a mosque and a temple there. And it's called the Temple Mount. And you find the Wailing Wall. Anybody ever heard of the Wailing Wall?
Yeah.
The Wailing Wall is the outside wall of this enclosure that's approximately 35 acres. And everybody, including Jews, says, this is the Temple Mount. Now, what have we learned about culture?
It replaces itself?
Well, culture is normally replaced by tradition.
Okay.
Okay, so the truth, what you hear, remember, this does not mean something good in its original form. It meant cut your throat, cut their throats.
Okay.
This meant to drop your weapon. They will live. So it meant just the opposite. So over time, you've got truth being replaced by tradition. And so our tradition is it's now good and this is bad. Tradition says that the Temple Mount is where the temple was built. The temple was built. And I am here to say the temple, what they call the Temple Mount, is a tradition that is not worth, what's the word? Is not the worth arguing about, but it's very important to understand that is not where the temple is going to be built. First of all, it was a Roman garrison built by Herod. And this is what surprised me.
Is that why it's got the aqueduct?
That's not a bridge. That's a bridge.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
It's like an
I'll
aqueduct.
go over this. You guys, you don't need your pencils. So, in all reality,
Are you talking about the place where they all pray and
yeah.
right now? Okay.
And the Muslims go up on top, and the Dome of the Rock.
They put
Everybody heard
little
Dome
things
of
in the
Rock?
cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cracks.
Wall.
Yeah.
Wailing wall, yeah.
So this is what it looks like.
That's called the Wailing Wall, you said?
Yeah.
It's shaped like this. This is what it's shaped like. And right about there, you got the Dome of the Rock.
Right.
That temple, or that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's where that is. And then there's another Muslim thing up there too. There's two of them up on top of this.
Right.
This is approximately 35 acres.
And this is the Wailing Wall you're
The
talking about?
way, this is west, this is east. This is north, and this is south. Okay? Over here, you've got this ridge, and this is called the Mount of Olives. Everybody ever heard of
Yeah,
that?
I heard of that.
Okay, the Mount of Olives, Mount Olives. That's because there's olive trees as old as when Jesus was there.
Right. Still putting olive things
Yeah.
out.
So, and there's a valley. There's a valley that runs through here. It runs up here. And this is called the Kidron Valley.
Right.
Anybody ever heard in the Bible about the Kidron Valley?
Yes.
Okay. There's another valley too. That's here. It's called the Cheesemongers Valley.
The
Really?
Mongers Valley.
Cheesemongers Valley.
Okay. This is what was used in the teaching. There's another name and we'll get to it, but it's called the Cheesemongers Valley. And this thing runs like this. So there's a ridge that runs like this. Okay?
Yeah?
And behind it, and this runs like this. So this goes like this. And there's another ridge behind it.
What's with all the ridges?
If you go to Israel, you will not find a flat spot, period. It's all crags. You know, if you go back here on the hills, how many flat spots do you find? I mean, they're just what we call hogbacks. And on our property, we've got over 200 acres. There's some places where it's about 10 feet wide, and it drops down about like this, and it drops down about like this. You know, and it's about 50, 60, 70 feet down to the bottom of the canyon. Those are called hogbacks of the ridge, and then you got the finger canyons. And so it's ridges off the side. So you got this ridge, and then all these other ones off the side, and they've got you know, it's just full of canyons and, you know, little fingers out here. This is what this is all like. So, all to say, this ridge runs out like this. This one runs out this way. So, get it right? This ridge runs out like, yeah, something like this. And then...
Well, they cross each other basically.
Pardon?
They kind of cross each other.
Well, and then there's this canyon, I should say, this canyon runs behind it. And then this one runs out like this. So that's more like what it looks like. Here's a ridge here with a canyon, and here's a ridge here. So there's a ridge here, and they match out here, they come together over here. And then there's another one over here. And we're going to be talking about the city of David. The city of David was about 10 acres. Okay? This is 35 acres. It's all flat. It's all flat up there. Got big old walls all the way around. 35 acres flat. Shaped like, and it's not square, it's a pentagon. So it doesn't have quite square corners. It's, you know, it's got this big rock that sits up in the middle, top of this rock. And you've got 2 points, one here and one here, that wraps around. Mount of Olives over there. This point ends right here, and for the Mount of Olives, you can see here and you can see here. This is called the Kidron Valley, right here. Goes right through here. It has the Kidron River on it. And this was once occupied by Jebusites. Before the Jebusites were there, it was called Salem. Who's ever heard of Salem?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay, who is the king of Salem?
Jesus.
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, yeah.
Guess
Right.
who came to Melchizedek at this location and
Kedar.
Abraham.
offered his tithe?
Abraham.
Abraham. He also tried to offer his son.
Wasn't it
Same
called?
place?
Not in the same place, but in this locality.
Randy, wasn't it called Kedar or Kedar or something? Kedar?
I can't remember that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because what I want to get is there's a history here, and I want to form your idea about historical facts and what has taken place. But I want to give you an overview. This is the picture. That temple area is really what the temple was more closely associated with than this. Because remember the eastern gate, it's all closed up, it's all walled up. That eastern gate is right here. And it says, Jesus is going to go through the eastern gate. Sorry guys, that's not the gate he's going to go through. Because that's not where the temple is going to be built. Because that's not where the temple was built.
And you're talking about Ezekiel's.
That's a Temple Mount.
We're talking about the Temple Mount. That is not the Temple Mount.
Oh, okay.
Because the Temple Mount was built in the city of where?
Jerusalem?
David.
But the temple that you're talking about, that Ezekiel prophesied about, has not been built yet, and that is the temple you're talking about.
That's
It's
about-
going to be in the future.
That's right. So we're going to talk about the past now. Get my notes out.
So let's go to Home Depot and get the supplies and get that thing going.
I want to let you know they've already got all the supplies ready.
Okay, good.
I mean, including the ephods and the candlesticks, and everything has been,
They're already practicing sacrifice and all that.
yeah,
They're already practicing being priests.
yeah.
Whoa.
And because of the DNA ability to say who you are and who you aren't now, they know who are priests and who aren't.
Yep.
Ah,
Yeah.
They're already practicing.
So,
wow.
but the Jews are saying that the temple is here, and they're wrong. Now, the reason why we're going through this is because I've been going through, movies and pictures, and if you go to Jerusalem today and you went back 3,000 years, you would not recognize the same place. You would not even, you would think.
Is there still a wall around it?
About what? Which wall?
The wall around Jerusalem.
Which Jerusalem?
Well, the one that, okay, it probably wouldn't be the one that, what's his name, rebuilt, right? That would have been gone a long time
Okay,
ago, huh?
we call this is part of the old city. This
Yeah.
Old city sits over here.
Mm-hmm.
We call it old because it was built before us.
Mm-hmm.
If it was in the time of Jesus, you wouldn't even be called an old city.
Right.
Because the city of David was built on this ridge and this ridge. It wasn't built to the west. If you look today, this over here is all built up, this is all built up. I mean, this is 10 acres. How many? The city of David was 10 acres. I own 10 acres. I can walk about it in about, you know what I'm saying? An hour on a fast trot, I can do about 2 or 3 circles.
Yeah.
Cities back then were really like jam-packed. Everybody's seen it in Eastern City, how the streets are. It's about big enough for maybe a cart and a horse. And don't get squished, in trying to pass. The streets are very, very narrow, and they're usually built up remember they slept on the roofs? They were like 2 and 3 stories, a lot of them. Even in David's time, they were built up and save space. The aspect is that there was probably 2,500 people in Jerusalem. That's not a lot of people.
Then or now?
In the time of David, there was probably about 2,500 people. That's not very many people, but if you put them in 10 acres,
A lot of people.
that's a lot of people. Because remember, they didn't have sewer systems like we do today, and they didn't have lights, and they didn't have, it was pretty basic.
It'd be like taking all of Elma, pretty much. I'm in 10
Yeah.
acres.
In 10 acres.
Downtown anyways, yeah.
Okay. Now, but the other thing I want you to understand too, by the time you get to the time of the Greeks, Romans, do not think 2,500 people, and do not think that the buildings they had were just superficial. Has anybody ever seen the blocks
Yes.
on the Wailing Wall?
Yes, it's unbelievable.
The foundation blocks on the Wailing Wall. Have you ever? I saw them today. They're about this tall, and you can count. They're at least that wide. And they're probably 25, 30 feet long, 40 feet long.
How could they even put it there? When they put the cornerstone block there, you know what I'm talking about? Not the cornerstone. What am I trying to say?
Now, there's about 10,000 stones left in the Wailing, in around that. I'll call it a citadel. There's about 10,000 stones that are left over from Jesus' time. Now, when Jesus prophesied, what did he say?
That won't be one stone. There will be one stone upon another.
That's right. So, why is there stones left? Did Jesus prophesy falsely?
No. No.
That's a question. If that's Temple Mount, why are there stones still there?
Because it's not Temple Mount.
It's not the Temple Mount.
Oh,
One word
That's
David
very,
added is
very
gone.
good.
Now, you won't find anything here,
And that's where it was.
and that's where it was. This was
That
not,
was Herod's temple.
no, that was the Legion's headquarters. Legion's headquarters, they all built, every place they went during that period of time, they were built with about 35 acres. They were normally rectangle, but there's a reason why this is not rectangle.
They can't move all those rocks anyway.
Dude, you're going to hear some amazing things.
Okay, all right. All right, I'm excited.
We have
I'll shut up.
no idea what they did back in those times. It was amazing what they did.
Wow.
So, anyway, these stones, the base stones, are like huge, and these walls are up to 110 feet high. We're talking 110 feet tall
Built that.
on these. Right? 110 feet tall right down to the base. Now,
Right.
when you look at your picture, See this around the base?
The,
Those are slabs, so you can't climb up. Those are the angle, big slabs, and they're just layered so that, you know, you can't get up. It protects the base from undermining.
Right. That's what they put that all the way around it.
If you could undermine that, what I'm trying to say is, it's made to be invincible.
Right.
So you've got walls that are 109 feet tall, all the way around.
so that right there is Fort Antonio, where you're saying where the Temple Mount is.
Yes. So, let me get my picture. I'll do what I need to do. Here it is. So let's look at this. First of all, that aqueduct, that is called the Bridge of the Red Heifer.
Looks like
The
not.
bridge of the red heifer.
Yeah, it's the bridge of the red heifer. Anybody have any reference to red heifer in the Bible?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the red heifer, once they find that perfect red heifer, that is like a sign.
It's for healing.
Yeah.
The red heifer was sacrificed, and then it was ground up and was used for when you wanted to get healed. You use this in water, and they did it. You drank it and stuff. There's a process that was involved, and scientifically, it promotes healing. So, it was for healing, and who is healing? Jesus. Every sacrifice out there is a part or a phase or a facet of what Jesus does and is.
Like in shadow.
Okay. Now, in front is the Valley of Kidron. Okay. Over here is the Mount of Olives.
Okay.
This right here, this little corner, that's called the East Temple Gate. And you will read about it in Scripture.
What is it?
East Temple Gate. The gate right here. This is the gate into the east part of the temple. Right?
By the bridge?
Pardon?
By the bridge?
Oh, no, yeah, well, it's at the end of the wall.
There.
Right here. Right there is the gate into the east. That's the East Temple Gate. That one. Right there.
You point,
Yeah, right there.
point on that and show us here on this.
Right there.
Okay.
Right there.
All right.
How's that?
This is east, that's west, that's south, and this is north.
It don't open up right there.
Well, what it is it's a gateway or a passageway in.
Okay.
And let's see. Oh, there's a Roman temple. Let's get this way. Roman temple right here.
Okay.
Okay, that's a Roman temple.
Oh, where is it? Oh.
On top of the, what's his name? I want to say, what was the first emperor?
Herod?
First emperor. Antonio. Anthony.
Antipas.
It was Anthony. It
Anthony.
was called Antonio's, it was something Antonio. Can't remember.
That's why it's called Fort Antonio.
Yeah, it's Fort Antonio.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was a fort, guys. Not quite like Indians, but it was a fort. So, there's a Roman temple there, and what we call a praetorium. Where did Jesus get tried?
At the Praetorium.
Praetorium.
Right.
And, most likely, it was on top of the rock.
That's why there's confusion about that.
That's where Jesus was judged by Pilate. Then, the Wailing Wall is over here on the, this is
Other side.
West Wall.
West side, yeah.
West Wall is the Wailing Wall.
That's weird.
That is the wall that has almost 100 feet of fill. We'll get there.
Are they emptying it out right now?
No. Don't. That's what it looks like right now. It's almost, yeah, anyway. Let me get the right figures. Right here, these steps
Yeah.
right here,
Yep.
in between,
Yep.
that is where Paul said
Yeah.
in Acts 21, may I speak to them?
Right.
After he'd been assaulted.
Right.
What does it say about the Roman guard? They rushed where? Down. When Paul was being beaten up, right?
Right. Right.
I thought it was before in like Acts, somewhere around 7 or something.
No, this is when he comes back after his journeys and he said, you're going to go, prophesy.
Oh, okay.
And he gets into the temple, and they said, "Oh, you've been bringing a Gentile in here, and you're defiling the temple." And they closed the temple down, and they rushed on him, and they started beating on him.
Right.
And listen,
They're gonna tear him
the
up.
guards heard and saw, and came running and rescued him. And it says they came running down.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Now, I want you to look at the towers. The towers are on 4 corners. Which one's the tallest?
Well, it looks like this one here.
The one on the east. Let's see, no, let's see. North, south, east. Yeah, on the east corner. The east corner. It was 60 feet tall.
Okay.
The rest of them were about 45. The reason why that was 60 feet tall was so that the Romans could look down into the court of the temple and see what was going on. Guess what they saw when Paul was getting beaten up? And the alarm went out. Now,
So he was down here getting beaten up when they were up there in the 60-foot tower? Oh, over
yes,
here.
he was. There's a court.
Oh,
These are
okay.
courts down here. These are courts between.
Yeah, it would echo if you were talking, you know.
Oh yeah. And when Titus was taking Jerusalem, he was up in that tower directing his troops when he was trying to take the temple. If you look off into the side, there's 2 runways. They're called colonnades. Colonnades?
Colonnades.
Yeah. Yeah. They're columns with roofs, and they're basically a bridge. And they go down in from the fort into the temple area.
Where's the temple?
The temple is right here.
Oh, okay.
Where?
This is the temple.
Over on the left, right here.
This is the temple, guys. This is the temple area. The temple area is 600 feet by 600 feet. Fort Antonio is 900 feet wide. It squishes, so it's not, you know what I'm saying, but its wide spot is 900 feet. It's 300 feet wider than the temple area is wide and long. Now, what's important to know is that any kind of model that you see about the temple will not have these. It will be inverse. You'll have the fort over here in this corner, and you'll have the temple over here. Okay, the temple will be here, and the fort will be on this corner. It's all out of tradition. What I've described to you is a description. What's his name? The Jewish historian
So Josephus?
Josephus gave us. And he described battles, he described sizes, he described locations and formations. So that's where we're getting our information from. But the most important thing is the temple is located over the only water source in a 5-mile radius. Now, I'm getting a little bit ahead. I'll throw it this way. And the reason why it's important, if you're cutting up all kinds of animals by the hundreds daily in the festival seasons when they're supposed to bring turtle doves and, you know, how do you get clean if you don't have water?
Yeah.
There is no water up here, guys. No water. And when the Romans finally got there, they built aqueducts from Bethlehem in that area, because it's higher up. They brought water in with aqueducts to bring water there. But when David was alive and Solomon was alive, and when all they were doing all those sacrifices, the only water was that spring. The spring. And they what's unique is why the tradition won out over fact is that they could never locate the city of David. Never. Remember, it was buried. It had junk. In fact, most of it still isn't built upon.
I was gonna say, it's still not undone.
No, I mean, it's still ruins.
Right. It's buried.
A lot of it. If you look in today's pictures, you will find a highway that comes right up here and goes off this way and then back over here. So I'm going to go about my notes so I can get us all getting on fire. Okay. So Fortress Antonio. Antonio. Okay.
Oh, the whole thing.
So, when Josephus is describing Jerusalem, he's describing 3 ridges, 3 hills. He says, this hill, the valley of the
Cheesemakers.
cheesemongers. And then he says, the upper. This is higher than this hill. And he said there was a 3rd hill that had a rock that was 90 feet tall. You will not find a rock 90 feet tall on a hill anywhere. And they said that this hill was higher than this hill or this hill. And this is the hidden hill.
And this is what?
This is the hidden hill. These were lower than this hill, that ridge. But in today's world, and I'll give you a picture. This is pretty good. This shows you the city of David. And I want you to tell me what it looks like. Where's the high spot on that hill?
Well,
What's the rock thing underneath this David thing?
I've only got 2. You 2 are going to share. Tell me, where's the high spot on that hill?
Campbell, or Palace.
Where's the high spot on that hill?
Palace.
Over by
Palace! Of course, the palace is going to be on the highest spot, right? Yeah.
I need you to hold it up. In the picture.
I don't have a picture.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Picture. Here's that point. It runs out. Here's the point. Right here. This is that point. That point runs out. High spot is that palace. This is palace. I don't see a temple. I don't see Mount Zion. Anybody ever heard of Mount Zion?
Yeah.
There was a real Mount Zion in the city of David.
Besides in the north of the city, that's great.
Okay? Okay.
Let's talk about it.
This is east, west, what's this?
South.
South.
North. Mount Zion. Do you see Mount Zion on that picture? That's what this looks like today.
This is what it looks like today.
It looks like it steps down, doesn't it? Down to the bottom of the point. This thing looks like it goes, steps down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the way it looks today. That's not the way it looked in David's time. There was a mountain there and it was over 200 feet tall. It looked down on the temple. It looked down on David's palace. And it was a stronghold. Anybody ever heard of this stronghold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that stronghold. Something happened. It disappeared. So we're going to talk about that too. And all of this is from Josephus. Okay, this is all about from Josephus. Oh, and the Essenes. Anybody ever heard of the Essenes?
Yeah.
You're going to find out why they were out living in the desert. So, Jerusalem has two hills, and the cheesemongers valley in between. And there was a missing hill of a 90-foot rock. And the question is, what happened? What happened was, Herod the Great decided to build, with the help of the Romans, a Roman garrison in Jerusalem. And they took these great big stone blocks, wrapped them around this rock. That's why, and the shape of this hill, you can't go out any further. And they needed 35 acres, because that's what they needed for a garrison. And this rock was 90-some feet tall. And so by the time, and this hill was lower than here. And so they started building up, and they crested, and all that showed was the very top peak of this rock when they were through. They built this thing up higher by, I think it was 70 feet than its original height. 79 feet. And these rocks are spaced in 1 inch every time they go up. You know what that does to a wall? Anybody ever built a wall with blocks?
Yeah.
The reason why you do that is because it leans in.
Right.
The only reason why it needs to lean in is because it's got fill dirt behind it. They took this whole plateau and filled it with dirt. 35 acres. 100 feet deep. Now, this is where I'm trying to talk to you guys about engineering and what they did as a workforce. It was awesome.
So I wonder where they took the dirt from. Maybe there's got to be a big valley someplace.
Without kidding?
Yeah.
Hey, they took it from someplace.
Yeah.
And when they dug all the way down to the bedrock to lay these stones. And then on part of it, the rock, that 90-foot rock, the base of it is part of the foundation. It shows.
So are you saying that that Roman garrison is built upon that 90-foot rock?
It covered the 90-foot rock.
It covered the 90-foot rock. Okay, so underneath all that fill, there's just this, I mean, if you took all the fill away, there'd just be this 90-foot rock.
There'd be this 90-foot rock sticking out of this hill.
Wow. Wow.
That's what
That's
they call
what
it,
it
the
is.
Dome of the Rock.
What's that?
Is that why they call it the Dome of the Rock?
Yes.
Yeah.
It sits
Wow.
on top of this rock, and it's most likely where Jesus was judged by Pilate. Not a
But
good place.
by
Not a
Pilate-
good place to put a temple. Let me tell you. and it also had a few Roman temples in it. So don't do this. Yeah. So defiled. In fact, the Jews, they had a great big laver. You know what a laver is? A big wash bowl, big,
Huge.
right outside. So if they had to go in, they wash
Yeah.
ceremony, clean themselves. So
I've seen pictures of explosives there, guys.
in Jerusalem, like I told you, there is no such thing as a flat space, a flat spot, much less 35 acres anywhere in Jerusalem.
Isn't that where I throw this in? I don't know if you're going to talk about this, where the threshing floor is?
Threshing floor
The threshing
is
with David,
over here.
it's over there.
Remember, that's where the temple was built.
So, okay.
Yeah. That always gets confused with, oh, that's the rock and that's the threshing. No, you'd have to climb 90 feet to get on top of a rock and thresh your, no, don't think so. It was a pillar. So that's where we get a problem because it looks flat. You're trying to judge everything by what it looks like now. It does not. It did not look like that when Jesus' time, Abraham's time, all the way down to Herod the Great's time. Maccabees, it wasn't done. It was Herod the Great that did all this. 75, the wall extends 75 feet lower. Oh, the hill is 75 feet lower than what it is now. The summit, besides the rock, the summit of the hill was 75 feet lower than what it is right now. 75-foot wall. The Temple Mount, Fortress Antonio, base to top is 75 feet. Okay. And the survivors of Masada stated the only structure that was left in Jerusalem proper was the Fortress Antonio after 70.
After 70 AD.
After 70 AD. It was the only structure that survived in all of Jerusalem. Now you have to understand, Jerusalem didn't go way up there, it was right here. And it wasn't your village city. It was modeled after Rome. It had Roman structures all over the place. It was littered with high-end real estate. Everything was gold and silver. You know, it wasn't wood, hay, and stuff. There was nothing there. It was all glamour. He wanted to impress Rome. Herod the Great wanted. And there's a story behind him. Everybody know how Herod the Great got into being Herod the Great? Hasmonean. The last Hasmonean ruler died. He left two sons, one a weak son, one a strong son, as far as ability to rule. The strong son was the oldest. Their counselor was Herod the Great's father. He worked the younger against the older, and he persuaded the Romans to come in, kick both of them out, put his son as ruler. And who was the nationality that tried to get the Jews killed in Babylon? Remember that? With, I was not Ruth, but where they throw the dice. She's got a book named after her.
Asher?
Asher, yeah. Okay.
What was it?
Asher.
Esther.
Esther. Esther.
Who was the guy? Who was the bad guy?
Mordecai. No, Mordecai was the
Haman.
good guy.
The Haman.
Haman, what?
Say that again, man.
Somebody look up Haman.
Some kind of item.
Yes. It was a Hittite or
Was he a Hittite?
It might have been, yeah, that sounds,
yeah.
I know they
Guess
were
what-
into baby
guess what?
sacrifice and stuff.
Where's
yeah.
Guess what lineage
Where's it?
Herod the Great was?
Esther.
Same.
Was it?
Same. He might have been part Jew, but not that much. Hezekiah's. Anybody ever heard of Hezekiah's tunnel? This is really important.
Oh.
Hezekiah, what was the importance of Hezekiah's tunnel? Hezekiah's tunnel was the pool. What pool was that?
Is Amalekite?
Oh, yeah. If he was an Amalekite, yep.
Descendant of Agag.
Agag.
Yeah.
That's, oh, remember Agag? Samuel.
That's like a gag.
Saul, he didn't kill him. And God cursed the Amalekites. Wherever they were. So he was an Amalekite. Down here is the spring. I wish I could remember.
I'm 63
Anyway, the spring. It was
It
a,
might be very close.
the only water within 50 miles, and it was a big spring. I'm not talking about a little spring. We're talking about hundreds of gallons an hour.
Is that the
and just before
Kidron Valley? Is that?
In the Kidron Valley. And so it's right about here.
Is that where the aqueduct thing above is?
And it was, how did David take this city? Now you have to remember, it's described as having insurmountable walls on two sides. The valley itself was this. So you couldn't really send a force up the sides. The only way to get to it was from this side. So you only had to have one wall to protect yourself, basically. But the problem was that the spring was down in the bottom where it came out. How did David conquer the city?
Shut off that supply, didn't he?
Nope. What did he say to Joab? He said, any man who goes up the water duct will be what? Captain. His cousin said, meet a man. And so Joab took a bunch of guys and they went up the water duct. What the water duct is this? What's unique about the spring is this. Do I have? Yeah, I got it.
Is it this spring of Guy?
I don't have enough here. You want to give me some?
What do you make?
Yep, yep. Three, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So is that the spring of Gihon then? Is that the word you're looking
Guy,
for?
yeah, yes, yes.
Surprised I couldn't find the things that separate, you know.
The Gihon.
Gihon.
Gihon Spring.
Are you still
Gihon.
looking to find out what nationality Haman was, or are we way past that?
Oh, we're way past that.
He's an Amalekite.
I gotta read this.
Okay, so the Gihon Spring is right here.
I'm gonna read this.
There, if you look at this, it says there's a,
I can't see.
and this is an actual drawing of the ducting that goes up, the tunnel that goes up, that Joab ran up.
Yeah,
The thing about the spring is, it's a siphoning spring. The spring collects in this, basically a room, this cave.
Okay.
All the water seeps in, but on the backside, it comes up like this, it comes down like this, and runs out to the spring. So the water gets all the way up to the top, and it siphons out. And it siphons all the water out until it breaks that air.
And then it goes away.
And then it fills back up again. And then it siphons. It goes, shoo. So it goes. So Joab is going up this shaft when it's not pumping out water. And let me tell you,
You better hurry.
you better hurry. Yeah, depending on its cycle, they had to figure out a way. That was the only way into the city.
Whoa.
They figured. So what you have to do is, if the city's here, you plug this end up, and it will force it all the way up to the city.
Flooded.
If you block its outlet, the water will force up This cave is way up in the mountains. And so it's siphoning down, and when you look from where they figure the cave is, we're looking hundreds of feet below.
Wow.
Now, think about what it says in Revelations about water flowing from where? From the threshold of the temple. From the threshold of the temple. Joab works his way up that, gets inside, he and his men, and they take the Jebusites out. Because it's not a very big city. But the boast is, what?
They took it out in water that evening?
They climbed up that water shaft. Right up this.
Into the temple now?
No, into the city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 'cause what they did is that they would take, from the water was coming up, they would bail it into a cistern.
Oh.
Or they would, run it into a cistern. So their cisterns were always full. The problem was that spring was outside. It was outside the city.
Can you hold that up now?
This?
Yes.
Okay. So this was outside the city. So what happened when Hezekiah knew that he was going to be attacked, I think it was by the Assyrians, he extended the wall around the spring and shut off all the overflow going outside the city, so all of it stayed inside the city, so that the attacking army for 5 miles around would not have any water.
Wow.
And so they built this tunnel, and it runs 100 feet under this ridge back into the backside.
Huh.
And it's, which pool is it?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, and they started at both ends. They started at both ends, and they worked towards one another.
And it lined up right.
And it lined up right. Because they said they saw the light.
Wow.
I wonder what kind of light that was.
Wow.
But normally they would run, when they would dig along a fissure, a crack. So they would follow the crack, so they could probably see the light as they came. So, and when they came together, they were right there, without all the modern tools.
Yeah. No electricity, no tractors.
No. This was rediscovered in 1880. It was dug in 700 BC. It was 1,500 years old. And it firmly established where the city of David was. Because up until that time, nobody knew where the city of David was. They thought it was clean over here. Because that's where the city was. All this was trash. It was rubble. The city had grown up over here on this side where the Wailing Wall is. So everybody would have thought it was on the Western Hill over here. Next, the temple at Mount Zion. Bible tells us strictly, Mount Zion, temple, built in the city of David. And you'll hear it over and over. And just like you're saying, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King? Guess where Jesus' city is going to be built?
Besides
Mount Zion. Where's the temple going to be built? Mount Zion.
City of the Great King.
City of the Great King. That's his seat. He loves that seat. That spot. Now, Mount Zion was right here, and it was 200 feet higher than the rest of this. Now, if you looked at your picture of the city of David, it looks like this. What happened to Mount Zion? Funny you should ask. Everybody knows about Hasmonean rulers, right? Okay, this is the part that most of us don't get because it's not taught. We have 400 years of God not talking to anybody, right? After the last writer. That's wrong. God always talks. We just haven't, through tradition, listened. On top of Mount Zion held David's citadel, or his stronghold. That's where the gold shields were kept. We were in the citadel. Remember? Solomon built a bunch of gold shields and whatnot. He set them up there. Citadel. In 160 BC, Judah Maccabee was the high priest. The Greeks came in and offered pigs to Zeus in the temple and desecrated it. The Maccabees, his brother rose up, Simon, and expelled them from Judea. And Judea, by the time they were through, was larger than the landmass that was controlled by Solomon. Nobody ever tells you that, but the landmass that they ruled was larger than the landmass that Solomon reigned. They conquered everything everywhere. They also killed every Jew that even thought Greek. I mean, these guys were zealots. We're talking about anything that looked Greek, and that's why I was telling you. Nobody spoke Greek in that culture, or any other language. Everybody spoke Hebrew because they made it a mission to kill anybody who didn't.
So when you say Greek, because I always hear that they spoke Aramaic.
Well, Aramaic was a
Greek?
sister tongue too. Aramaic is Chaldean, and Chaldean is a Hebrew. Just like you go to England and try to speak English, they won't understand you. English is the one language that separates us. I mean, that's really what it is. And Aramaic is different from Hebrew. It's a different dialect. So, but they use the same alphabet. One square script, they use the same square script as the Aramaic. So they could write and understand one another for the most part. So, to cleanse the temple, Simon Maccabee was elected high priest and king. He decided to remove Mount Zion, the citadel, the tomb of the kings, and so he ground this thing right down past the bedrock.
And why did he do that?
To cleanse the
To cleanse it. Okay.
They destroyed the Temple Mount, destroyed Mount Zion, and wiped it clean down to bedrock.
Maccabees did that?
The Maccabees did that.
Talk about moving mountains.
And we're talking 200 feet, we're talking 200 feet wide and no less than 300 feet across.
Whoa.
He was zealous.
Now, this is the interesting part. Everybody supported him except for the Essenes. At that time, they lived in Jerusalem and they were worshiping at the temple. They were a sect, just like we have Methodists, Baptists, They were a sect of Judaism. At the time of Jesus, there were about 23 different sects or denominations. They were worshiping at They got so mad at him, they called him the evil king. In the writings found in the scrolls, Dead Sea Scrolls, they expressed their anger at his defiling this area.
So when he was thinking he was cleansing it, but
He had other plans too.
Maccabee?
Remember I told you this side has about 100 feet of fill? Guess where it came from? Mount Zion. He
Oh, wow.
filled this canyon. He filled it. He filled a little bit here, but he filled from here up here. This is level and it slopes downward. If you go on YouTube and places like that, the road goes down. You can see where it goes instead of like this, because these were unattainable areas where you could not crawl up the bank hardly. They were steep and deep. We're sitting on a point 300 feet wide at the widest place where the temple sits. So he cut this down bedrock and stepped it all the way down to the bare bottom. He renamed Mount Zion over here. He placed David's tomb over here, or the tomb of the king, where they are today. So it's been renamed, and this is like, he wanted this lower than the temple. Mount Zion looked down on it. He wanted it scraped. I think he wanted a name for himself, truly. And what happened was it made it possible for this, because this valley was filled, for building to go from here up to the upper. This is called the lower part, and this is called the upper city. Lower city, upper city. If you read in Scripture, it says lower city, upper city. But this was higher than the upper city. So this is lower city, upper city. And then the cheesemongers valley. So the cheesemongers valley got filled in, and they were able to build this way. And if you look, there's heights here, and there's all kinds of building now here, and there's all kinds of buildings all the way across here and up around. The Zion Gate is now on the northwest. So you'll find the Zion Gate. If you go to Jerusalem, you say Zion Gate, northwest. It's over here. Zion is really over here. Because it's just like this. Things change over time if you just want to relabel it. This is not the Temple Mount. It just got relabeled because we didn't know where the Temple Mount was. It was buried. No other way of doing it. So, the Essenes called Simeon the wicked priest king. And they moved to Purim. I think that's the way that you pronounce it. They moved into the desert to practice. Now, the Essenes, did you know that John the Baptist's parents were Essenes? My wife informed me of that.
yes.
Do you know that they had a real good belief system on the devil that most Jews did not have? Let's see. The Wailing Wall, there's 60 feet on this side of the Wailing Wall, and there's 109 foot total. Originally, before the fill, this wall would have been 109 feet. He filled that thing up almost 50 feet. with fill on this side. So, temple. Temple was 600 by, 600 by 600 feet. Excuse me, 600 by 600. That was the floor plan. And Josephus talks about it being 600 feet wide, and it extended from one edge of the rim of the canyon to the other side to the rim of the canyon. 600 feet. Or I should say it's right here. 600 feet this way, 600 feet this way, 600 feet this way, 600 feet this way, spanning the entire top of the ridge. Coincidentally, it's right over the chute coming up from the spring. It also sits, my drawing's not really close,
No, it's not.
but those two runners, or those two causeways that came out from this corner is 600 feet
Okay.
from the citadel. It would sit 600 feet from the end of that citadel. And the key is that if you're going to have a temple where you're butchering all kinds of animals day and night almost, he describes how the water would come up and they would wash in between.
I always thought there's probably going to be a war over that, because I always thought that really was the Temple Mount. I always thought there was going to be a war over that so they could rebuild the temple, but now I see they're not going to have to do that.
No, who blinds eyes?
The enemy.
God.
God.
Oh,
God.
sorry.
No,
Yeah, he does
so he
too.
allows the enemy to. But what I'm
Okay.
saying is that this is all for a time and a purpose. I mean, God is timing everything. And
Yeah.
He's closed their eyes to what, I mean, they're Jews, guys, but they're still fighting tradition. And I'm going to make a point here. How important is it to build a temple?
Very.
Very. I mean, it's called prophecy. It has to happen.
Right.
Jesus has to come back. He has to go into the temple. He has to do whatever he needs to do. How much do we have to fight? Tradition. I'm telling you, I've lived 65 years, been to church 65 years, and tradition is as strong today or more so. It will warp people's minds and say, oh no, I can't accept the truth. That's going to defile my tradition.
That's tradition is one of the main strongholds in our walk as a Christian and us being a divided body. And I do know that that's why, the Lord is being so gracious in turning our hearts to Shema with Him and to really put that yearning in our spirit to know Him more. And so He's preparing us, and in that preparing, He is stripping away some of those traditions as we start to look at them and go, that's really goofy, and that really doesn't make any sense. Why do we do this? How did they do it? Lord, what do you say?
Now, when you hear about the pool of Shalom and all those pools, do you know where they're at? They're going to be here, and here, and here.
So they're going to have those pools back?
The pools are there.
Oh, they're there.
They're still there. They've dug them out. And just to let you know, they dug them out of the rubble. They have found the pools.
That's right,
They have found, this and that and everything else. They found the walls, the what is it, where you protect things, there at the pool, the towers, there's a tower that they found, it's really important, built like in Hezekiah's day. It's like 16 feet in diameter, its tower. You know, they're finding all this stuff in the city of David. All this stuff, but if you look at pictures, it looks like a battlefield. Everything is just tumbled everywhere. And I just want to bring this out because culturally, when we start talking about things and you don't have an eye or an ear to see, to really picture, I would, advise going online and looking up for yourself. But this stuff is very important when you're trying to assess, oh, Jesus is going to be riding in on a colt. Where did he come riding in on a colt at?
When they're laying down the tall grapes.
Yeah, Mount Olives, come across, down, coming into the valley. This valley is important.
That's the Kidron Valley?
Kidron Valley. He wasn't going this way, guys. He was going this way. And so when you get up into the temple, you have to go from here up this way, because there's roadways up this way. You know, there's ways to get up into this area. But when Jesus was preaching, think about when Jesus is preaching, guys.
Yeah.
Here's the citadel right there. He's preaching and there's a citadel. There's a porch, wraps around, Solomon's porch wraps around this thing.
Okay.
Guess where the Holy Spirit came with fire and tongues?
Up in the upper room.
No. Citadel, not citadel. In the temple.
Was it the upper room?
Yeah, in the temple.
In Solomon's porch.
Yeah.
That's
That's
where
where all
happened.
the people were, that's why they could hear him in all the different languages and they could understand, because there's all those different people there that had gone there.
They were in the temple at a festival called, what we call Pentecost, which means 50 days. It was every male had to come 3 times and present themselves before God. 3 times. That was 1 time a year. They were up here, they were meeting in a upper room,
Okay.
but they met to pray every day in Solomon's porch.
Okay.
And so they were right there. So here's Paul. 60 feet across over here. I mean, there's all kinds of area. 600 feet, 600 feet, 600 feet. There's another size of the temple right there. This is where it all happened. I want you guys to have a picture of how things work. Because it's really important being able to identify a picture and a word and a meaning. I want you to know that Abraham came up this way to get to Salem, to meet Melchizedek. I didn't know that. I didn't know where Salem was. It was Jerusalem.
That's really cool to know that, yeah.
So, we're done. Anybody got any questions?
You didn't ask us the question, they always ask us every week.
Oh, she's ready for it.
I wrote it down.
Okay.
So
We're perfect.
I have a question.
Yes.
Huh?
We're
Is
perfect
your
today.
point that when Jesus comes back, the timetable depends on the Jews getting their act together and proceeding to build what they're supposed to? Is that your point?
What does it mean that he's going to come again when the time of the Gentiles is over?
Millennial reign.
Pardon?
The millennial reign.
What it is that right now, who is running Jerusalem?
The Muslims.
The Muslims.
Muslims.
The Philistines.
Oh, Armenians.
Yeah.
Jews.
So
Gentiles.
what's going to turn that around is the Jews have to take charge?
Well, I'm not saying taking charge. They're going to suffer a lot. They're going to suffer a lot. So are we, as we stand with them. What's going to change is, ultimately, is when they say, this is what the Bible says, when you look upon me as a son, your only son who has been slain, and you cry for me.
Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. That's the scripture about it.
They're going to say, come, Lord Jesus.
Yep.
Now, I'm not.
Matthew 24, 25.
Oh, yeah, there's.
Scripture about.
So did
They're
that
gonna
answer your
wail, they're gonna
question?
wail.
Jesus says when they say,
Are you
blessed
kinda-
is he that comes in the name of
I'm
the
not
Lord,
sure that
I
answered
will
your
return.
question.
Well, it probably hasn't, because I'm not gonna say they're gonna get their act together, but the only act that they can get together is saying, come, Lord Jesus. And the Bible says the whole nation's gonna be saved in one day.
Now, that being said, also, they will rebuild a temple there because the scripture tells us that the Antichrist goes into that temple and sits on it and proclaims himself God.
Yeah.
So we do know that they will rebuild that temple,
Yes.
and they have the plans. That is something coming soon. That is in the works.
We're talking about probably the temple in Ezekiel's
Not
temple
that one?
that has not been built yet. And then, it talks about the water running out.
Well, that comes after Jesus, because that comes when Jesus sits on the Mount of Olives and it splits. No, this is east, and it goes east. So it's going to split and go this way. It's going to split east, and it's going to go right out to the Dead Sea.
Amen.
And they're instructed, all the Jews are instructed to run into that valley for safety.
Yep, Jewish people are going to cry out for their Messiah and he will return.
So that was, the crying out is the point, not that they have to actively start doing something.
Right.
They have to will to do something, they're saying.
Yeah, it is relational. It is a Shema. It is find that place. It's acknowledging. Right now, what they do with Jesus is that they call him by another name, which is the forgotten, don't want to know, worst case scenario. He's a curse. That's what his name is to them. He is the forgotten one. And